All right, what up? Welcome to the podcast, episode 94. Stuart Anderson here with Team Mi Duole. So 3 years ago when we started the podcast, just a brief introduction here. We had the idea that the team is big. So our Salt Lake City-based Mi Duole team, it's a big group. And it's been around for now 40 years. And a lot of the stories and a lot of the people didn't know each other. So we started the podcast interviewing team members and moving through local people that we ride with and that we see and telling the stories. So the team is closer and the culture of the team is brought together. That is the purpose. That is what we hope to accomplish. And that purpose is going really well. The people that listen to this podcast are members of this team, and it's fun to expand a little and reach out to professionals, people in the industry, people that we associate with and things that we do and see all the time to get their stories, to understand them, and to kind of expand our horizons when it comes to cycling and building an incredible community, which this is. I'm so grateful to be part of the Utah cycling community and help build this group because I am passionate about bikes. I'm passionate about the way that bikes change lives, the things that bikes do for people when it comes to hard times or challenges, and even just fitness for my kids and fitness for the challenges that the NICA and high school races offer. So that's why this exists. Grateful for all those that listen. Thankful for the sponsors of Mi Duole, which make it possible for us to produce this. It's through our sponsors that we pay for the website that we upload the podcasts to. It's because of our sponsors that we are afforded a lot of opportunities on this team. So super grateful for them. Grateful for cyclingupgrades.com as our title sponsor. Thankful for Corby and all that cyclingupgrades.com does for the team, not only in giveaways and fun activities, but also the money that Corby gives for anything that this team needs, whether it's gear, crash replacement kits, sponsoring our team camp in April. Cyclingupgrades.com affords us a lot of that. You're going to hear from Esma Taylor today, who is part of the Specialized team. And if you didn't know it, Kristen, me, and Spencer are Specialized ambassadors. We reach out to Specialized anytime we're doing giveaways, team camp, Canyons Challenge, and Esma is the one that we work with. So grateful to introduce her to the team. Thankful for her example, her leadership, not only in Specialized, but also as a racer. You're going to learn a little bit about her journey and especially how she got into cycling and what makes cycling so special for her and the people that she tries to bring into the cycling community. Esma has a great story and great suggestions for all of us who are part of this community on how we can grow the sport, be more inclusive, and make this a place where people just love to be. So grateful for Esma. Hopefully you'll follow her journey, whether it's on Instagram or Strava. She is just getting started, and Kristen alludes to that she's the next generation of cyclists in America. So fun to support her, fun to support all that she does. So hopefully you enjoy her story. I was sure grateful to connect with her and thankful that she had the time to be with us. So enjoy this episode. Thanks to everybody that's listening, and that's it. Go Mi Duole. Thanks. What's up? Episode 94, Mi Duole podcast. Grateful to be with you. If you are watching the video, I have Esma Taylor, Kristen Anderson. Welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
It is November 8th. Grateful to do this little podcast together. I'll introduce Esma in just a second because I don't know if very many people on Mi Duole know who Esma is, but she plays a big role in our team. So grateful to have you here. A couple announcements. 40th anniversary kits are up. I think I'll produce this before the store closes. So Neon 40th anniversary kits are available till November 13th. Kristen, what necessary item are you buying from the 40th anniversary kit?
It's hard to choose. I want all of it.
Mm-hmm.
I want one of everything. Probably gonna go with, for sure, cash bibs. Because I don't plan on anything but dirt next season.
Whoa.
Maybe the new zipperless jersey. Go with
But
the cash bib gravel vibe.
And you saw Chip's long sleeve 40th anniversary kit. You really like the full pink. Yeah, you really like the full pink sleeve.
Oh, yes. I'll have to do a long sleeve. I'll probably do the Velocity Air long sleeve.
Okay. Very good.
But I'm trying to be a minimalist with this, but it's really hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
It looks
cycling
real
and being a
good.
minimalist, they don't really go that well together. So,
They really don't.
okay. One last announcement. Team Camp, April 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th in St. George. So mark your calendar and don't make any excuses. Everyone should be there. It's going to be the best. And Esma, you could come. I think we even invited you last
Oh,
year. Oh,
Yeah. Mhm.
you could show these boys a thing or two.
mhm.
Very cool. So we're going to move on. Esma is a US. I'm going to read your official. Actually, I don't really have an official introduction, but I know Esma because she's the USA Ambassador Marketing Specialist for Specialized, which is super awesome. And you're also a professional racer. I don't know exactly what took. It's the ABIS team, but automatic ABIS. What do I call the? Okay, you tell me.
Yeah. Yep. You got it. Automatic ABIS.
Automatic ABIS.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
A racing team and club out of Boulder, Colorado, which is where she lives. And I was looking at some of your race results. You spent a lot of time racing.
I try.
Like you were even, I think the last 2 years you've even been at the Salt Lake Crit, right?
Yep. Salt Lake Crit last 2 years, both years, horrible at the Salt Lake Crit. Heat stroke, both of them. Not my race, but it's fun, and I will always go to it because it is pretty easy drive over. So I'm stuck. Gotta come, but
Well, that's usually the hottest day of the year, and then they do the race at like 3 p.m. I'm like, this is smart.
It's awful. It's one of those races where you really come to find out if you can handle the heat or not. Yeah.
Terrible.
Most cannot.
We were talking about how cool it is that you live in Boulder, how much you love it there. What a cool place. Kristen's dad used to live in Colorado Springs, so we spent some time there, and Kristen lived there. But yeah, you're close, and your climate is a lot like mine. You were just saying you're going out. Oh, no, you're not going out today.
Not today.
Not today.
But it's honestly, the fall isn't bad. It's like, that's an asterisk. It's either summer or winter in the fall, I feel like here. You don't really get too much like in between.
Nice. So we met Esma through the Specialized Ambassador Program. So we try not to pester you. I feel like all ambassadors are probably pestering you. So I try to keep my distance, but we're watching, and it's fun. We're Strava friends, which I thought was cool that you are a real racer, a real rider, that you're in this industry a lot. I joked with Kristen that, we're part of Mi Duole. We do a lot of work for Volet. We're specialized ambassadors. And so we're high school mountain bike coaches. And so there's a lot of our family that not a lot, like almost all of our family revolves around bikes. And yours is probably very similar, right? Shaking your head, yes.
Yes.
Maybe, could you talk about that? Like how it all started, how you got into your background into bikes? Is that a good place to start?
Yeah, for
Let's
sure. Yeah, I tell almost everyone all the time that I'm all bikes all the time, right? Like
Nice.
my whole life is bikes. And it was a pretty abrupt change. Like I wouldn't say I've had the traditional trajectory, both career-wise and like on the bike and off the bike. With all that being said, I'm so grateful to be where I'm at right now. But it definitely wasn't easy. Haven't gone any free hand ups. I've haven't even broken out, in my cycling career by any means. So I have a long ways to go. But I started cycling actually really racing just last year. But I did get into cycling in around 2018, 2019. So that's when I was a freshman in college. I went to Indiana University. Thankfully, I went to Indiana University, or else I don't think I would have ever found the bike. So that was definitely a blessing in disguise. But I grew up in Indiana, more like central Indiana, and went to school in southern Indiana at IU. And if you don't know, they have the Little 500. So I don't know if you've ever seen Breaking Away or heard of Breaking Away. So that kind of goes over all the history of Lil 500, and it follows a team called the Cutters. It's super awesome. You should watch it. But nonetheless, I went to IU after having like a pretty prolific career in gymnastics. So I was a gymnast my whole life. That was originally the sport I wanted to like fully pour myself into. A few broken vertebrae and wrist surgeries later, before I was like 18, I was like, all right, I don't know, if this is, feasible. So got to college, was honestly like just still trying to make gymnastics work. So I joined the club team. But at this point, it wasn't the same like competitive atmosphere, and my body hurt, and I was just like, all right, like I need to lay this to rest. So then Low 500, I knew about it. My dad rode bikes just like super casually, so I knew cycling was a thing. Like some people don't even know cycling exists. I feel like a lot of people don't know it's like a thing you can professionally pursue. But I knew my dad biked. And when I got to college, I joined a sorority, and Lil 500 is very, very Greek based. So you have a ton of sororities and fraternity teams that race in it. But you also have some independent teams. Yeah, it's crazy. You guys should really, if you go watch some like
I'm gonna like now. Like
it's
looking
so
at the
funny.
picture.
So what makes it so funny is that it is just a bunch of you have like 80% of the teams that do it super leisurely. And so you're throwing together 33 teams, 33 riders. You only have one rider of your team represented at a time on the track. It's a cinder track. You have these fixed gear coaster brake bikes with really small gears. So I forget exactly what it is, but it's like a 46 something. Like it is like you spin out. It's just super bizarre. It's like one piece cranks. They were Schwinn. I think they have been Schwinn for a while. I think they just changed to state bicycle bikes. So maybe a little nicer, but anyways, it's a crazy race. The other 20% of teams take it really seriously. And my team happened to be one of those teams. So I did train kind of year round from sophomore to senior year for this one race. And it's not even an official like varsity race or anything like that. It's literally just an annual bike race held at Indiana University, just IU students. And it has a lot of history. It's just bizarre, but I love it. Super fun. It kick-started my love for cycling. And like as soon as I started getting into that realm, I was like, this is what I want to do. I worked at a bike shop every single summer after that, like starting sophomore year. I just like fully dived into cycling. I worked at a few different shops. I loved it. I did service. And it was great. It taught me a lot. And it was really like, I don't know, like I said, I just like dove into it very quickly. And I think I poured everything I had and all my interests. Like I 360, I was like, I want to be an Olympic gymnast. And I was like, nope, I'm going to be a bike racer. So with that being said, I didn't really race that much in college, right? I think I did like a few races, like Tour of St. Louis. My team went there. We had like one collegiate crit at IU I did. And I did Little 500. So I didn't do too much racing, but I did a lot of training. We had our coach was a professional cyclist, so he was coaching us, and we were doing legit workouts. I was probably doing around 15 hours a week in college without really like knowing it at the time, but definitely like a decent base, a lot of cadence work and like kind of track-esque efforts. We're doing rollers a lot, things that didn't necessarily equate to like a big engine. So the more you get to know me, you'll know I have great top end and absolutely nothing else. And that's something I can touch on too, just like the idea of like this everyone around me right now, I feel like everyone who's really good and who's my age, like they came up through the junior ranks, and that's not something, necessarily I've had or experienced. So sometimes I feel like I'm 10 steps behind. But I'm working my butt off. And it's been going well, and I have a lot of lofty goals. So
Nice.
there's definitely no shortage of where I want to be. But yeah, college, great. Graduated, actually got a job at Specialized. I was interviewing at Specialized senior year, got the position, moved out to Boulder 2 weeks after graduating. So
Wow.
I have been with Specialized in Boulder since I graduated college, which is funny. It's like I'm 24, and I am essentially managing all of USA sports marketing right now. I'm in a fantastic spot in my career. I love it. I have a lot of responsibility. I manage all of our professional athletes and our ambassadors and our teams and our clubs and
Dang, Esma.
partnerships and sponsorships, all of it. So yeah, it's a lot.
That's a lot. That's so much. Oh my goodness. Kristen, any follow-up question?
I had one. Lots of things. What it was like to be a female service person in a bike shop is always interesting to me. I feel like bike shops are kind of like ski shops. Pretty typical to go in and just kind of find like a big group of guys. And, I've talked to people before about like kind of being intimidated, by the bike shop scene when you're new into cycling, especially as a female. But interesting to hear just like your whole come up, but like your thoughts of just being a female in the cycle industry. Like how does that drive you? What does that mean to you, I guess?
Yeah, absolutely. Shop life, to put it like very honestly, was very, very, very hard as a female.
That's a triple very.
Very, very, very hard. I will never sugarcoat that because it is the reality of it. And if I were to go back to a shop with all my experience right now and knowing what I know and being who I am, I would still get treated the way I was treated when I was 19 and just getting into bikes, and someone who's not naturally exuding confidence. Like I'm not somebody who is naturally just like, oh, I know what I'm doing. Like I'm outspoken, like none of that. I wouldn't characterize myself as that. So I stepped into this environment that at first I was like, this is great. This will be fun. And it was hostile. And not my coworkers, but customers. It was hard. I had great coworkers, thank goodness, because if I didn't, I think I would have been gone very quickly. But they were always there to kind of remind me like, hey, like, your shit, like you're fine. Bring it back down to earth. Cause there were definitely moments where I was like, I need to step away. And it was just a lot of assumptions. It was a lot of like offhanded comments. It was a lot of like, is there a man here I can speak to? It was a lot of like, are you sure you know how to do that? Or are you sure like you know what you're talking about? It was a lot of comments on my appearance physically. It was like, oh, you have strong legs. And I'm like, oh, that's the first thing you're gonna like come up to me and comment about. And I remember like all of those things, like it sticks with you. And it's how you're perceived. And it's just one of those moments as a woman, you're like, oh, like this is truly like this is literally how I'm seen by a lot of mainly older gentlemen that come into bike shops. So that was like a bit of an eye opener and like, oh wow, like this really like happens. This exists. Like it's, they're like it's still there. So with that being said, I kept coming back and I kept kind of like coming back to like prove myself more and more. And I did. At the end of me working at shops, in the beginning of me interviewing for Specialized, I was confident in what I knew. And that took a lot of growth, like just like personal growth. And that was like a journey in and of itself. And like sitting here now, I can confidently like talk to you two and say like, I can talk bikes all day, every day. Like I know a lot about the industry. I know a lot about tech specs. I can fix a bike. I can build a bike. I know it all, and not just road, like mountain, cross, like everything, gravel. Like, I ride it all. I've raced it all. Like, I get it. So yeah, I definitely like bike shops are a little tricky. I think the industry as a whole is like slowly shifting. That's like even hard to say because you still don't see like a lot of women in the industry. But the women I know in the industry are incredible. They are some of like the smartest, most determined, passionate people I know. So we definitely are represented well. And I think that's a really good start.
Yeah.
But
That was awesome. Esma, I don't know if maybe you don't even remember you wrote this, but on your LinkedIn page, there's these two paragraphs that are so cool that I kind of want to read to segment into why you're in the industry. So Esma wrote that sports has and will continue to mirror our society. The values and lessons you learn in life has a direct parallel to those values and lessons you learn on the field. For many, sport is what opens the door for them to a life they otherwise couldn't imagine. I am passionate about recognizing and harnessing the leverage of sport. I want to help to continue to lower the barriers of entry and unite my community around these shared experiences. Throughout my career, I have worked as an advocate for athletes and riders around the nation. I am skilled in developing partnerships, taking on multiple tasks, and executing a wide range of responsibility with excellent time management skills. Why do you feel this way?
yeah, I saw that and I love that you bring that up because it's something about me that like I don't like talk too much about, but Kristen, you will love this too. So first off, the quote is from Nelson Mandela.
Cool.
And I did a lot of like sport history and just like that type of study in college. I was so intrigued in how sport mirrors society. So you will see for eternity that sport is a direct reflection of society, whether it's social causes or political changes, like whatever that may be. You see a lot of that reflect back into sport because it is a platform, right? Like it is a platform just like any other thing. Cycling's a little funny because in the States, like you don't get that as much because it's not as big of a platform, but I think that's we'll see more and more that developing. But anyways, I was writing this like in my undergrad. I was like, I want to go to grad school and I want to literally just like the like socioeconomics of sport. Like I'm so intrigued by it. And I was writing this whole thing about women in sport. And women in sport is one of the biggest topics where you can point back time and time again and be like, that like mirror society and kind of the advancements or lack of advancements in what's happening. So I just like for fun was like in undergrad was writing this. Like I wrote this like 200-page essay just like in my free time about women in sport and kind of like going into it and just like it. No one's seen it. It's like I've done nothing with it, but it's crazy. Like it's a rabbit hole you can go down. So I'm super interested in the development of sport, and I think that's where cycling really piques my interest because there's so much more development to go. So you look at like NFL, NBA, NHL, MLS, and you're kind of like, okay, like it is how it is, and it's been this way for a while, and there's like small developments still happening on like the like financial sides of things and kind of like contractual side, but other than that, like the bones of those sports and those organizations aren't going to change. Take that cycling in America and like, flip that on its head. Like we've had multiple different crit series. We have NCL popping up. We have all these different organizations like vying for that the thing that will stick to be American cycling in the bones of racing in America. So that's like super interesting to me. I love being a student of the sport, both just like sports in general, and then especially cycling. Cycling's a great sport to be a student of. You can learn a lot, whether it's just like looking at organizations and how they've kind of formed and or dissolved, or just the sport itself, just like the racing. Like I love watching the Grand Tours. I love watching the classics. Like it's the best. It's so fun.
Esma, your passion for this sport is unmatched. Well done. Nice.
Thank you.
Kristen, any questions?
While she was talking, I was sitting here thinking about, I think it's like why, even when my kid hated it, I was so drawn to like coach and be a part of NICA, and especially the female program that they run, because I watched it change people and give kids that kind of are on maybe the fringe, or they're not in those core sports, right? Like they don't play football or basketball or whatever. And I've just kind of watched it teach them things that are invaluable. Like it's like really, it really is something that has such like a far way to go, but I like want to be a part of like the little steps. And watching NICA grow since my daughter started to 2,300 athletes just in our state competing for state this year. And I did like a little dive into the numbers of when it started here and how many girls went to state, and it literally was like less than 100 in 2015. And so it's like watching it, it's like when you're training and you can kind of like see the gains, like it's like exciting to see. But it's interesting to just talk to you about what you see from the industry side of like how much potential there really is. And the females that I look at that are in this industry, I mean, they're incredible. Like they're just incredible people all around. Stu and I were talking about Sarah Sturm the other day, just about, how they are using this as a platform. Like they're starting to see that they can sort of help society see things in a different way, just like through riding a bike. And I've always said it's so much more to me and to us than the bike. It's like so much more than just riding the bike to Stu and I. Otherwise, I don't think we would put so much time and energy into it. But anyway, it's just nice to hear from the industry side too, that, the potential, especially for females in the sport, is being seen, and hopefully we can figure out a way together to like push that forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Thank you, Kristen. Very, very good. I was thinking about the little girl that you rode with that one time from the Olympus team. It was like her first year riding. This is so cool. And Kristen was kind of riding with her, and she'd been like a dancer. And they were on this ride.
Senior.
She was a what?
She decided to join the team.
You kind of cut out. She was what?
Oh, she was actually a senior in high school, when like it was the year before, the summer before her senior year, that she decided, I'm gonna leave dance and I'm just gonna do this mountain bike thing and try it and see how it goes. Yeah.
Yeah. Halfway through the ride, she was like, "Why have I been dancing? Dancing's so dumb. Like, this is so much better." It was such a funny. I mean, I'm not saying dancing. I'm sorry if any dancers are listening. It was a good story.
I constantly say like cycling is the only sport that has given back to me in the way it has. I like kind of touched on like my lack of general confidence earlier, but like cycling is the one thing where I'm like, you know what, like I haven't done a lot. Yeah, I haven't really, like there's nothing crazy that's happened. But like with that being said, like the hours and the training, like what I've put into it, there are so many moments I can point to, and just like where I'm like that is all the hard work paying off. Even if it's just me like by myself riding my bike, and I'm just like, oh, I just hit like a new power number, right? And it's like, that's it, like there it is. I'll give you a little bit, like each every like couple months. It just keeps you coming back for more. But yeah, cycling is one of the few sports that's like truly given back to me. I think gymnastics took a lot from me, like a lot. You're just like pouring more and more and more into it, and then I got very little out of it. But I haven't yet, like I will pour everything I have into cycling, and if it doesn't pay off, and then if I don't see the success I want to see, I'm not gonna like regret that. by any means,
Nice.
because it still has changed who I am in a very positive way.
Great perspective. When you look at the huge view of this industry, because you have a really interesting perspective of professionals and teams and ambassadors and giant product with Specialized, like what do you see? Like what's the direction that this giant thing is going? Yeah.
Oh boy. Oh, I don't even know where to start with that one. I'm seeing good things. I'm definitely seeing like improvement where there needs to be improvement. There's more woman specific teams and Devo specific programs popping up. There's still a giant issue with funding in the cycling industry. So you still see a ton of turnover of teams. You see a ton of turnover of teams on all levels, from club to UCI, and everything in between. You see turnover of events and races.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the really big negative thing. And that's really hard because I'm not, at least in the road space, you're seeing a lot of struggle with keeping things alive. And while there's still like maybe some like, I'm seeing it on the roadside, some growth and interest, the infrastructure just isn't there. And the problem when it comes to like the infrastructure is like there's hardly anything I can do about it. I can sit here all day and be like, I want to support your program. I want to support you as a rider. But what do you do when you're seeing a ton of women getting stuck in Cat 3-4 because there's no local races around them that have more than 5 riders?
Yep.
Like, what do you do when they don't have the money to go do Toad or go do Gateway or Intelli or Speed Week, one of these large events where like they can get upgrade points? So there are like a lot of these really like integral, like grassroots, like local level issues that I don't have the answer for. And I'm like a little scared that it's going to take a lot longer to like see improvement there. But like on the higher level, especially when you're looking at off-road events, you're seeing this huge explosion. And opportunity. Like I will never be one to say like, oh, just because it's this discipline or in this like realm or region or whatever, like it doesn't have an effect, because it does. Like even the off-road space kind of growing, like it is having an effect. It is, especially in like a non-endemic sense. So that's something we struggle with, is this like buy-in non-endemically. We can go back to like NFL, NBA, all these sports that have this like incredible infrastructure and organization. You're seeing athletes develop from 5 to 50, right? You have them in like, we have NICA and we have these really good youth programs, but then not as good of collegiate programs. And then not nearly as good of programs right outside of collegiate opportunities. So that's really hard. We're just like seeing all these gaps. And unfortunately, like when there's a gap, that rider falls off. That talent like is no longer, because there is no opportunity. And they're like, well, what do I do? Like I'm now just keep consistently hitting this wall and I don't see a way to improve, to get over it, to get better. And that's like super challenging. So that's an issue. But I see more investment in women's sport and youth development still. And like, that's all good and dandy. I do think like some major things are going to need change though, in order to like continuously support that, or else it's just gonna fold. Like it's just one of the things, like I will never just like, I'm not like, I want action and I want to do what I can do to actually change things. And I'm very aware of when things are like, no matter how much I'm pouring into something that's like a really good thing to put resources into, I'm like, I can't hold this up. So I think we just need more resources and more like financial support and like non-endemic buy-in into cycling to see it really thrive.
Nice. Anything else? Anything else that you're not I feel like you have other solutions that you're not quite telling us.
I have so guys, I have so many things.
I want my hands on this document. I want.
I have so many things.
What else?
Yeah,
I
I mean,
mean,
like,
because you are talking to
yeah,
a group of you're talking to the grassroots right now. That's who's listening to
yeah,
you. I mean,
yeah.
if you're gonna have a platform and you're now standing in front of Me Duole and you're like, hey, this is what I need this group to do. Like, what would you say to them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh, I love that. That's actually makes me excited. Okay, so I recently thought of this. I recently was like, and I've thought about this with automatic. I'm like, what if, okay, let me back up. I did a lot of racing in Northeast this year, a ton. It was my first time going to the Northeast. I was like, New York, New Jersey, Philly. What is this? I'm not a big city girl. I was like blown away. There's so many people. And it was so busy and terrifying, and I didn't want to drive anywhere. But it was phenomenal. I did not know there were a ton of racers out there, a ton of female racers, and everyone riding a bike is a racer. And I'm not saying that needs to be the pathway at all. It is what I am passionate about. So I focus a lot on racing and racing development. But if you're a bike rider, it's not, you don't have to be a bike racer too. The Northeast, though, is doing something right. And that is like small series that are really easily accessible, really cheap, and they happen every single week.
Yeah.
And you can cat up and you can race your heart out. And you can build this community that is unlike anything I've ever seen. Out in Boulder, you have a ton of cyclists. You don't have a ton of bike racers. We have great infrastructure in terms of bike paths and bike lanes and like a general sense of respect with drivers and motorists, but you don't get as many racers, and that's because we have maybe 5 local races and the women's fields are maybe 5 deep. And so I was thinking, yeah. And so I'm like, okay, out here, out west, I'm like, we just need to have these like smaller, consistent races that are literally $15 a week, $10 a week, or you buy like a package for the summer and it's like 6 weeks or 8 weeks of races. We just need more of those things. Like, it doesn't have to be this big production. It needs to be, if you're a cat 4 or 5 female, you race for free. Let's partner with USAC. Let's make it official and let's get points involved, right? Like, let's actually like make this something that's accessible, fun, like break down any of the barriers of like, this is intimidating. Like make it fun. And it's more intimidating because there's only 5 races a year around you. So like all these little things that kind of, it's like a domino effect. But the Northeast does a really good job at like, they have clubs that are really strong. That big club like CRCA is like a big it's like I'm gonna like butcher this because I don't know exactly what it is, but I don't think it's like an organization. And I think it's the organization that manages all cycling or all like a lot of the races in that region. So we just need more stuff like that. We had that in Colorado and it like folded. It was BRAC. And it's like no longer. And when it became no longer, so did all the races that it supported. So I think we just need kind of like a bit more of like a governing body in each of these regions that's taking responsibility on providing accessible races that happen more consistently. They can promise it for a longer amount of time, and they're taking efforts to like reach out to those young women racers and young men racers who are, again, 4-5s and that looking to grow and being like, hey, this is for you. Like, if you want to give this a shot, like we're assuring you, we're promising you that like this is a pathway to your development. We want you to succeed. We want to watch you succeed. We want to facilitate your growth. I think there's all like gatekeeping in this sport. And I'm just like, no, like if we could all just like facilitate each other's growth. The women's pro field is like 40 on a strong day and 20 on a regular day. Which is bad. Like that's bad. Like my cat 3 fields were all much larger. So then you're like, okay, why? like what happened? Like what's the gap there? And it's just people not wanting to facilitate growth. It's small teams, not allow opportunity, yada, yada, yada. So
dang, it's so cool to hear your perspective. Like it's very rare that like what you're seeing in so many different places is so cool to hear about. I mean, we just see it here and I'm like, well, is this what it's like everywhere? Like, is this like Kristen will arrive at a race and she's like, oh, I finished. And it's like, you won. There were multiple races this year where she's like, well, she won. She was the only woman. She was the only one that did that distance. But I agree. Very cool to hear. Kristen, any follow-up?
No, I love so in Utah, we have this like midweek mountain bike racing, and it doesn't unfortunately involve points, but it's so fun because it just draws so many people. I can take my high school girls to it. We can take my family to it. There's a race for my youngest daughter who's like in elementary school. And then there's the expert pro category for the guys that want to go fast and go hard. But I agree that it's almost like the more chances to get people involved and kind of towing that line, you like almost don't know how much you want to race until you are doing that consistently, and it's something that you really love. And it's like, because we don't have it, they almost don't know. I think a lot of these kids, they start this thing in NICA and then they get out and they're like, okay, well, I've been racing an hour. And so I go from that to like, the only other event close to me is an 8-hour gravel event or a 10-hour mountain bike.
Yep.
You know, these huge, huge events that, yes, they're epic, but like, you know, when you want to keep someone in the sport and kind of push them to keep growing, it's hard to make that jump from sort of that, you know, that NICA level racing into these like mega events. But that makes a lot of sense. There you go, babe. Start planning the Mi Duole weekly.
Oh boy, what?
Road series.
Crit race around the neighborhood.
Yeah,
So,
around our circle.
Yeah, perfect. Esma, one thing I wanted to ask was, you've seen a lot. I mean, you've seen a lot of events. You've participated in a lot of things, and you kind of alluded to it earlier. But what do you feel you've overcome, like challenges you faced, and then how did you do it? Are you just like intrinsically motivated, or do you have a backstory or a mentor or a coach? I mean, maybe tell us a bit about your own personal journey.
Yeah. I think that's the best part about myself. I definitely, I think I am, I like, no one would be surprised, that I can tell you both, like, I am the least competitive person you will ever meet. I like literally don't, I don't get into that mode very easily. I've always been like this. I remember growing up, like doing like, soccer and just like sobbing. And my mom's like, you have to go to the game. And I'm like, I don't want to. She's like, but you're good. Like, you have to go. Like, they need you. And I'm like, no, like, I'm so scared. Like, I was scared. I was always scared. I'm still scared. But that fear is like, it's kind of, I'm able to redirect it a little bit. But naturally, I'm not very competitive. I'm not very confident. And those are definitely two of the biggest things on this path of becoming a professional cyclist. I'm like, okay, do I need to be those two things? Like, is that something that you just need to have hardwired into you in order to succeed? And this is something I've struggled with a lot, because I'm like, am I like inherently just not going to be like, are all the best people just, are they overly confident? And is that how they succeed? So that's something I go back and forth with. I think I'm motivated by very, very different things than other people are and other athletes. I think I'm motivated by recognition of my hard work. I think I'm motivated by people saying, like, I see you. I know how hard you work on and off the bike. And like, I value you as a person. I arguably place my job in that work way above like my where how proud I am with cycling. I am so proud of my work, my job. So proud of it. That's something I hold very, very near and dear. And it's something I work really hard at. And while I also work really hard at cycling and all those things, I think I want people to like see my career first with Specialized and just like within sports marketing and see the difference I'm making there before they see what I'm doing on the bike. Sorry, what was the original question? I've already gone on a tangent.
Very good. Just challenges that you faced, and then how you overcame them, how you overcome them.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it's a constant battle. It's a constant growth. And I think it's always going to be growth for me. I think that's what's going to make me continuously do this for the rest of my life, is because I'm never going to fully become that person who's just like overly confident, overly capable even, right? Like I don't think I'm naturally talented on the bike. I've never been an endurance athlete. I always feel like I'm just like 20 steps behind, and I'm just like chasing everyone's heels. So anyways, I think overcoming that is going to be my biggest challenge. And it's definitely something I haven't overcome. I've repositioned it in my head. Like I look at it differently. I think you had kind of mentioned like or cued me in earlier, like what would you what advice would you give young Esma? And I was thinking, I was like, gain some confidence, but then I was also, okay, well, maybe it would be more like believe a bit more in yourself, like you can do it, right? So it's reframing like the idea of like, well, just like try to like get this trait that maybe you just don't have, versus like, hey, like it's appearing this way because you just don't believe you are able, and you are, and like give yourself a bit more credit. I am probably never going to view myself and my achievements the way some other people view them, right? It'll be very hard for me to like be like, yes, like I did that, or I won that. Like I won Gateway last year. I won 2 of the races, and then like was like right off the podium for the other 2 and could have won the other 2, but it was just like, meh, I'll give it to somebody else. And they were 50 plus person fields. And it was the first time I was showing up to races with more than 20 people, and I won them. And like I attacked, like they weren't even just bunch sprints. Like I was like, this is it. When you do it, go now. And I have to like, those are things like I have to remind myself of that moment and being where I'm at right now and be like, not everyone won Gateway as a Cat 3. Like that's like great. That's like an amazing thing that you can kind of put in your back pocket. But it's hard to remind myself of those achievements because they don't seem very big, and they're not really, but it's still something I can look back to and be like, be proud of it. So I think that's my biggest growth as an individual. Check back with me in 5 to 10 years.
Okay.
You'll see. I'd actually love that. Like, let's just put it on the calendar now, because that would be great to see where I'm at there. But that's my biggest challenge. And I encourage all athletes like who are just naturally like, hey, like I'm not the best, or I'm not the strongest, and I don't know if I'll ever make it. And just having a lot of that self-doubt. It's like, put your blinders on. If you want it, go get it. And like, that's like, just worry about your own self-growth, stay in your lane. And like, nice. That's all that matters, right? Like, that's literally all that matters. And it's hard to remember that. If you have a goal, you have an objective, and you want that, stop there, right? Like no other like, oh, well, if, ands, or buts, like, that's all you need to guide you.
Nice. Well, and you also spend a lot of time helping others achieve, your role in general is to lift this entire group of professionals and amateurs in their goals, which is really cool to watch. I mean, when you were describing what you do for work, I cannot fathom how much time it must take, how many people you're caring for out in the cycling industry. So kudos. Well done.
Thank
Kristen, any thoughts, comments?
No.
Okay, great.
No.
Okay, Esma, we were at Leadville. You were there, but we didn't see you. So you've done a lot of events. Like you've seen a lot of, okay. Any favorite events, favorite memories from this past season, favorite athletes, any when you're like looking back on Oh, I love this. Anything that stands out?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, so many things come to mind. Yeah, I juggled a full calendar. So I was at all my races, but I was also at all my athletes' races. So
Yes.
all my athletes are lifetime Grand Prix athletes. I was at 5 of the 7 lifetime events. I went to 2 Rome Fest this year, went to Steamboat and a few other races, off-road races that weren't
Wow.
just part of the lifetime calendar. Went to Leadville, went to Unbound. Was at
You
Big Sugar
didn't
most.
you didn't come to beautiful Beaver, Utah, though. Beautiful Crusher.
Oh, I didn't. And I remember
Wow.
texting my athletes and I was like, hey, y'all, like, I'm really tired. Like, and this was, yeah, I went weekends and weekends and weekends of traveling, whether
okay.
it was me racing or me supporting. And, oh, my athletes are great. If it weren't for them, like if I had any other bunch, I probably don't know if I would be here, because it's hard. It's a lot. And they are all fantastic. You mentioned Sarah earlier. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Ellen Campbell, absolutely amazing. I want to give Ellen a shout out because she, her and I feel like are similar in our athletic endeavors. And she is so capable. And she's the type of person where you want to shake her and be like, you will win Leadville. Like, you can do that. And like pour all of your confidence in them, and do them. So Leadville is probably one of my favorites. I think it's one of my favorites because of how you see the athletes taking it and how they approach it and how they are when they finish it. It's almost, for all of my athletes, one of their A races, which is super cool because it's arguably one of the most challenging races. So you're like, how does this happen? Like, don't you just want to pick, like, I don't know, like a flat 80-mile race to win? That's what I would personally do. But no, Leadville is definitely like really high up there. There's a lot of history in it. The town is great, and it's like a 3.5-hour drive for me. So nice. Leadville is really awesome. I was super impressed by Steamboat. Steamboat was it was my first time going Steamboat this year, and I was blown away by it. I think they just put on a really great race. I think the organizers are great. And I think they show up really strongly in the diversity and inclusion space. I think they do a fantastic job at kind of like providing opportunity for those who otherwise wouldn't have it. So Steamboat's awesome. Leadville's awesome. I always like Big Sugar because, again, it's like one of those like really crappy races that like everyone wants to do good at, but they're also like, oh, this race is so brutal. And like, I'm like, yes. So that one's fun. And it's so like, it's more technical, right? It's like one of the few races you're seeing the athletes run 42s and 47s. Almost all the gravel races this year, people were on 35s too. Yeah. 34s and 36s and 38s. But anyways, I think those are some of my favorite off-road events. For road racing, oh gosh, I love Littleton. I think it's because it's in my backyard and it was my first like big race I ever went to. And I just love it. It's really fast and it's kind of hard and it's super cool. I love Littleton. I also like Indy Crit, again, probably because it's a hometown race. I think I just relate things like places I live to races I really like. So, yeah, nice. But Leadville's cool. Probably top one. I would love to race Leadville one day that I don't have to work.
Babe, we should go back. I mean, we should go back. We should do it. Oh, she's shaking her head. You could go back and
do it. Come on, Kristen. It's gonna be so fun. I did see you come through. I was at I forget which feed I was at, but I did see you.
Nice.
And I think I yelled.
Was I crying or was I fine? Was I swearing?
No, Kristen was saying. Oh, that's fun. You saw us. Cool. Great. That was a long day. Very cool.
That was a long day.
You've been around so much of this sport and you've seen a lot of people win and lose. I think it would be fun to hear from you if you were going to sit down. I think this is maybe a 2-part question. if you're going to sit down with like somebody just getting in, what kind of advice would you give them? And also, like we mentioned before, the platform here of this team, like if you were going to give advice to just cyclists in general, how to get the most out of it, how to be great teammates, how to be a great community. I mean, what sort of things do you see that the best in this industry are doing that we could copy?
Yeah, I love that. First thing that comes to mind is find a mentor, like find a really good mentor. Find a mentor who not only like do you maybe aspire to be in some aspects. It doesn't have to be that they're like the best racer in the world, but maybe there's other qualities or cues from them that you're like, I would like to, have that too, or like obtain those characteristics and qualities. So find a mentor who you look up to a little bit, and also a mentor who's like truly willing to pour everything they have into you. Like I mentioned earlier too, like the idea of gatekeeping. I think you run into sometimes people who don't want to, like they offer help and support, but then when it really comes down to it, they kind of leave you high and dry. So find those people who will make connections, reach out to teams or individuals they know, like really know your like what your goals are through and through, and just help facilitate that growth. My coach, I trust him with everything I have. I know he is there to truly and utterly facilitate my growth. Period, point blank, right? And that feels really good. You have somebody in your corner, and if I were ever leave automatic or, pursue something different, I know I have someone who's there advocating for me. So I think finding just a mentor and an advocate in that mentor is huge, and kind of like helping just emotionally support you too in your endeavors. So I think that's huge. I have a lot of mentors.
Cool. Very good.
Yeah, that'd be the big one.
Kristen, any questions? Follow up?
No, no.
Okay, I do have a question then for both of you, and don't take this the wrong way. If this question was twisted a bit to women speaking to men in this world, what advice are you giving to the guys you ride with, the guys that you're with, or the guys at the shop? Like what, or the dads, Kristen, that you ride with? Like, what are we missing? What don't we see when it comes to ladies in this industry? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Kristen,
do you want to go? Oh, okay.
I think of like, don't make assumptions, right? I think that's where the things that stick out to me the most are times where like it was just like a blatant obsession,
assumption.
Assumption. Like I'm just like, well, that's like completely incorrect. Like you don't know anything about me. And I think those have been the hardest moments. I think I talked to my fiance a lot about. I'm like, there's a lot of really kick-ass women racing around you, and a lot that could like beat you easily. And don't assume that they can't because they're a female. He's like, yeah, that's very true. And I'm like, yeah, don't forget it. Same with working on bikes. I'm like, don't assume they don't know how to do it, or like put a pedal on, or know something about like some tech spec of what their Shimano drivetrain is, because they're women. I think a lot of times male interactions, you don't see as many of those assumptions. It's more of a conversation right off the bat.
Yeah.
So
great advice. Kristen?
Yeah. The only other thing, it's obvious, but just finding a space to be competitive as a female in the sport is just few and far between. And so it just puts us in the position of obviously, training with and riding with and alongside male counterparts. And I think just understanding that we have the same goals, like we have the same idea of, the sport, and we want to push ourselves the same. And a lot of times those assumptions of, because we're female, like, oh, we can't hang, or I don't know. I just think like just realizing I think sometimes for women to show up is hard. You guys kind of, you just are so used to kind of showing up and having this like huge group. And I don't think you'd probably ever feel nervous to like show up to a ride. Like, but just being sensitive to what that's like to be, in a field where there's 2,000 men and there's 150 women, I mean, that's like, it's just being aware, because I think the more aware that people are, then those assumptions will start to go away, because it's just knowing like who's in that space with you, and how would you want to be treated. And I think our team does such a great job of it. And, I've never felt that way in our group, but I have in, other places. And I just think, just like being aware of like the extra step it takes just to get her to come and to show up, and there's not a whole lot of other places to go, I mean, that is kind of like what we have. So just like being respectful to the fact that we are there, we're showing up, like we have the same aspirations for ourselves that you do, and we just want that same mutual respect of, we actually do know like what we're talking about. And sometimes we do know things when it comes to nutrition that maybe you don't, or whatever. And, it's easy to sort of be discounted, but, what makes someone feel part of a group or a team is to be seen, to feel like you're being seen, you're being heard, and not just discounted because you're the minority, or I don't know if that makes any sense, but I would just say awareness, I guess, is kind of key.
Nice. Does it help to ride the nicest bike?
Always.
You're like, well, you don't think I know anything, but turns out my bike is way nicer than yours.
I love that.
Cool. Esma, we always kind of end with, and you can take this any way you want, but rules that you live by. I know that can be super deep or kind of funny, but is there anything, it doesn't have to be cycling related, but is there any rules, 3 or 4 rules that you live by, advice that you could pass on? Yeah.
Yeah. You can learn something from anyone. Like I've been saying that forever. Very quickly was like, you might hate them, but there's probably something they can do that you can't. So you can learn something from everyone. I think have empathy in all situations. Again, it kind of goes back to like somebody you hate or somebody's making you mad. Like it just have empathy. Like, it's like, it's going to take you a lot further in life than literally anything else. Just being nice. Yeah. I think those are big. I think not expecting any free handouts, and just being really like self-driven, and self-made is really important to me too. So no free handouts, be nice, learn something from anyone.
That's awesome. Esma, you are like an inspiration. I mean, you're awesome. It's fun to watch you and to interact with you. Is kind of what motivated me to ask you to be on here. I think you have a lot to give, even though you're young. I mean, not like I'm old, but you're like young, and it's cool to watch. It's cool to see how passionate you are, because I feel like me and Kristen are just as passionate about sharing what this offers. That's the coolest part about it. Is I really loved what you said about, I mean, not to take away from gymnastics, but that it takes, and this continues to give to us, like, especially just time with our kids and what it makes them learn. I just love that about what you're sharing too. It's fun to share that kind of ideal. So anyway, Kristen, any final thoughts?
I have lots of thoughts, but
oh, great.
No, I'm just grateful that there are people like you who are going to be the next generation of cycling. I mean, you're going to help it push forward and hopefully grow in good ways. And I'm excited because I know my daughters will be a part of that, and hopefully what Stu and I do can also help. And we're always here for anything bikes to push that.
Yes.
Push that agenda. because
All bikes.
Yeah, it really does give back to us in so many ways that really have nothing to do with bikes. So anyway, grateful that you'd come and spend time with us and tell us a little bit about what you're doing. So thank you.
Thanks, Esma.
Thank you. This was
You're
awesome.
Yeah. Good
Guys
luck
are
riding.
awesome.
Good luck riding in the cold.
Thank you.
Sorry. Kristen, you missed it before you got on. Esma was talking about how her coach is just like, doesn't matter. We're going out.
You just go out. You just go out.
Cool. All right, guys. Thanks so much. We'll wrap up. Appreciate you, Esma. Have a great season. Good off season, I guess. Cool.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kristen.
Yeah.